right, so the recording has started. We've already had our, everyone, the 4 members are present. We did that already. But let's see. All right, so, excuse me, I'm rusty. So we have 1 variance hearing scheduled, and then we have a number of items to discuss. But we also, I need to announce any items to potentially be added to the agenda as they were not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. And then we can decide whether we would like to add these to the agenda. So one is we have a new Visiting Nurse Association invoice for our review and possible approval. And the other is ratifying the agent's previous approval of another emergency well replacement. And does anyone have anything else to add? No? Okay, so do we have a motion to add those items?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, since I'm serving as chair at this meeting because Matt is not here, I'll vote at the end.
Matt Beavers, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl, aye.
I just realized I don't have to say my whole name. I'm really excited about that. But I'll still
Some
do
of
it
us
with every
never
comment.
do.
Okay, how about we do the visiting nurse first? That will be quick. All right, so a low bill, low additional hours for COVID. It's a nice change of pace. Any questions or comments on this?
Well,
Seems
when is
reasonable to
this?
me.
Oh, this is from July. The only thing I'll comment, I mean, it's obviously very low dollars, but are we just not going to contact trace anymore? I thought that that sort of was falling out of favor, so we wouldn't need the nurse to do that anymore. Is that correct, Matt Beavers?
That is my understanding. The latest CDC guidance suggests that we do not do that anymore. So this should be going away, I hope. And if it doesn't, we should try to understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
So maybe Ellen would like to address this, but my understanding is that some of it is also people have questions about what they should be doing. So it's not merely contact tracing, it's generally supporting people when they have an infectious disease or other disease.
Okay.
So do you have anything different to add to that, Ellen?
No, I think that's probably what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's other kinds of support, and that goes on outside of COVID issues and has for a long time. Although it was, we had relatively low number of hours allocated for the public health nurses, so that's why this is just trying to capture hours that are above and beyond kind of the standard level of service.
Right.
Okay.
It does say it's COVID though. I would say,
Mhm.
Ellen, like, you know, when you maybe talk to her again, that, you know, we can just say that it's our understanding contact tracing is no longer being required by the CDC, and, you know, just confirm that that's their approach going forward, because she has it on her, you know, it's spelled out on the invoice. I just don't want, you know, if we don't need it, I don't think we should get it done. So.
Yeah. Or if it's another service, it just should be accurately reflected.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Like, just be specific. It's probably boilerplatey, you know.
It's probably the follow-up part more than anything else, but
Right.
Okay, so is that okay with you, Ellen?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right. Okay, so I see that Tom is here. Hi, Tom, our food
Did
inspector.
you vote?
oh,
Are you going to
I think
vote?
we need to vote.
No,
to
we did
approve
not
this.
vote.
I'll make a motion to approve this invoice.
I'll second.
All right.
Any other
Matt, aye.
discussion?
Oh, sorry. Jumping ahead. So
No,
excited
go
to say
ahead.
my name. Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
And Daryl, aye. Okay, so Tom, hello.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Good to be with you.
Good to hear from you. So I think there are a few issues perhaps, but one is going to be Art Specialties Food Establishment Permit application, which I believe has now been completed with the receipt of the final test result. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, it sounds accurate. Mark had an opportunity to review the testing results, and we finally are in receipt of the missing sodium nitrite and nitrate, I believe it was. And those have since been
Oops, I think you're muted. There you go.
oh, did you hear what I just said? I'm sorry.
No, it showed the mute symbol
Oh,
on your,
I'm sorry about that. So yeah, we are in receipt of the missing results for sodium nitrate and nitrate, I believe it was. And those have been reviewed by Agent Orem, and we are in receipt of those finally. So
right. And is there a sodium posting up? I noticed that the sodium is high,
I will verify
but
if
that was an earlier one.
yeah, I'll have to
Mm,
verify
is
that
it?
at the store to make sure, and I'll convey that to Arthur.
I have a question because I've been in the shop and they don't make things on the premises and like everything is pre-made and packaged and just sold there. So what are they using the water for anyway? And like, is that just a requirement if you sell food because they're not prepping it there?
He does use water for warewashing. He has the last time the opening inspection, he had bulk goods that he was dispensing. So those,
Oh, okay, yeah,
have,
he does.
he had olive oil, which is in decanters that need to be washed, rinsed, and sanitized. He has scoops to dispense the bulk food items. So that was
Oh,
kind
okay.
of the necessity for the warewashing setup when we did plan review. So
Oh, okay,
all
thanks
very
for
minimal.
clarifying that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would assume for the benefit of employees as well.
Yes, for hand washing and right, to make sure that everybody's safe from
Mhm.
the concerning levels of contaminants.
Right. And that's why I'm not sure if maybe the posting really just has to be for internal staff, as long as they're not serving anyone water, but for the sodium, because 258's on the high side.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other comments for this? Anyone have any questions? Took a while, but I think maybe lack of familiarity with the process, perhaps. Okay. So do we need to, Ellen, do we need to ratify anything? Oh,
No,
finally approve anything?
Yeah, make a motion to approve it conditional to the sodium posting.
Okay,
And then he'll finally get his permit. He's been operating all year without one.
yes. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the permit conditional to the posting for sodium?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other comments? Okay,
All right, Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
and Daryl, aye. And Thomas, any other issues? I know we had some other permitting, but I don't know that there's anything that we need to
As far
vote
as
on tonight.
arts goes, or in general, or
Or other permits, but I think those are things that were
They're post facto. Well, no, one's
Yeah.
not post facto, right, Ellen? One is and one isn't.
Yeah, well, we were expecting 2 additional applications for ice cream trucks.
But we don't have those,
The
so.
first one is after the fact, for the Recreation Commission, where they had a truck at the swim meet on Thursday, August 11th. And we've been trying to get them to submit the application, and they still have not. I've talked to Jeannie in the select board's office, and she's contacted them, and there just hasn't been a response. The second one was the Sherborn Yacht Club was going to have an ice cream truck this Friday at the pond. And I sent the application to John Hyde on Monday. And he said he would get it right back to me. I still didn't have it this afternoon, so I emailed him. And he sent me an email response saying he changed his mind. They just won't have an ice cream truck.
Okay.
So it's just the one for the Recreation Commission that we just don't have.
First of all, I want to say that I want everybody to be able to eat ice cream. I don't want to spoil the party, but and I kind of fast tracked that for the rec department with the understanding that they would kind of do their housekeeping after the fact, but try to make it as streamlined and quickly as possible once we get the required documents in and we process it and all as well.
So were you able, though, with maybe verbal information to just check that the ice cream vendor had all the proper
Yeah, they had
certifications, et cetera?
they had a permit that they submitted from Medfield, and they had been vetted through the ice cream trucks required to be vetted through the local police department with their license, and they had done that process with Medfield, and they submitted that in writing over email to me. So I was able to allow them to operate based on that information, and then contingent on them paying the fee after the facts, which we're still waiting for now. So.
Okay. All right. So anything else before we let you go? Of course, you're welcome to stay, but you may have other things in mind for the evening.
That's all for now, but I appreciate being here, and it's good to see everybody.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Tom.
Okay, the new disposal works installer permit for Robel Inc. I presume that they have been, well, this is a new permit,
Yeah. It's
so you were able to check references?
Yeah, we've checked. Gene marked it on the application. He will be doing the installation at the Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, okay. All right, so any other questions or comments from anyone on this? Otherwise, okay, so do we have a motion to approve the permit for Robel Inc. for disposal works installer? Subject to a pre-construction conference,
Right.
As always.
since Mark isn't here to remind me.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other comments? Take it away.
Matt, I.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl, I. Okay, and I know I submitted a few suggested edits for the minutes of July 20th. Did everyone else get a chance to turn in, and would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended? No? Okay, motion, anybody?
Sure, so moved.
Seconded.
Okay, any other comments? Daryl, oh, sorry, I'll go last.
Matt, I.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl, I. Agenda items for the next meeting, I would say that regulatory review will be on there. And Lisa, I think you had an item too that might fall under that category, but also would be introducing maybe a new topic, but
Yeah, for deed recordings and
Yeah.
documentation for any real estate transactions.
So Daryl, what is your reason for not just going over it today? We have almost a full board.
because it
Wasn't it?
wasn't posted, and given the interest that some people take in hearing what we might be considering for regulations. I mean, I'm tempted to have some discussion now and then repeat it at the next meeting, but I don't know if that's practical.
I can keep it very high level, Daryl, for this.
Okay.
So that it's not like being presumed to be specific regulatory language or anything like that.
Okay, so do we need to amend the agenda officially, or shall this tie into our later discussion about deed recordings?
I could,
Perhaps.
yeah, so I could do it either way. I defer to Ellen, who's like
Right.
our
Well,
process
yeah.
person.
Since it wasn't added at the beginning, and if you can discuss it during the discussion of deed recordings later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that. No problem.
Right, because that certainly raised some issues for me in my
Yeah, no,
thinking.
that was my impetus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Do we really have 10 minutes? Till-
You can do the emergency well.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay. So yet another emergency well replacement is needed. Let's see if I can bring up.
Daryl, you said that the Groundwater Protection Committee is sort of keeping track of all these emergency well deepening requests. And can we have that on a map just so we can look at if there's, certain patterns and,
Well, that's what they're working towards. They are actually, if anyone knows anyone who is interested in doing mapping of well and septic data in GIS, there is a position open because the person who was doing it, who was very good, has moved on to graduate school now. So that will be
Where was
coming.
that person?
Excuse me?
Sorry, where was the person who has left to go to grad school?
What do you
doing
mean? Where
GIS.
they were working on the Groundwater Protection Committee
Right,
project.
no, where were they working on it? At
At-
USGS?
No, at our town hall.
For us.
Oh, our person. Okay, thanks.
Yes. So that, again, that's forthcoming at some point. And I don't know if the prior person had a chance before they wrapped up their time to add the recent wells. I know it was given to them, but I'm not sure how much time they had. Okay, so this is for 218 Farm Road, and here is the location. Oh, actually, Dan, you're
Yes,
on.
I
Dan, would
am.
you like to comment on this? I forgot you were here already.
Sure. So this is down at 218 Farm Road. We were contacted by the homeowners at the end of last week that their well had stopped producing. So we went down and took a look at it and did a little bit of a survey and researched the area for septics and other wells. So the existing well is kind of right by this tree right there next to the garden in the shed. The other tree,
The other tree. Oh,
right in there.
okay, existing well, got it.
So there's really no information on the well. It appears to be either a shallow dug well or more likely a point well, basically a pipe driven into the ground,
Mm.
connected to a pump inside the basement. But it's dried up, and we noticed that the large wetland off-site there is pretty dry as well. So I think it's just there's just no water in that particular area for shallow wells.
Mhm.
Or Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just there.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
So I think a modern, deeper well is what's required here. So we've sited it kind of at the kind of the apex of the property. That's kind of the high point of the property right there. And it was a good location for truck access to get in there and then get back into the house where the plumbing is. And it also avoids the septic area and the abutting septic. So when we were able to site it without requiring any variances to the well setbacks. Mark looked at it and has approved it. The homeowners have been in touch with Dover Well to get someone out there to start pumping it. They're currently being helped out by a neighbor with a garden hose connection. But they're trying to get this well put in as soon as possible.
Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with what kind of hose they have, but people should be careful when they're using
Yeah.
garden hoses, because older garden hoses used lead. That's what added some of the flexibility to them.
Well, they're not using that water for,
Oh, for
bathing and
drinking.
cooking. They're using it, they're basically filling up buckets with it and bringing it in to fill up the toilets and things like that.
Oh, okay, all right,
Like gray water, basically.
Yes, yeah.
okay, good. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about this?
So it's upgrading of the on-property septic and the closest abutting septic. So that's why the 150 radius is what's applicable, and they more than meet that. So that's good.
It typically would be a 125, but we noticed that when we were researching the septic system, they had perk rates, at 3 minutes or less. So we added the additional 25 to it to get the 150.
I like that. And do you know how deep they're planning on going? Do you know like where it ledges or or no?
We really don't. It seems like it's a big gravel hill right there. I'm not sure how deep they'll have to go.
I'm actually a little bit encouraged that the old well may have been shallow, because given the proximity to Farm Pond, I was a little surprised that wells would be dry in that area if there was any kind of connection.
How far is it from lake? Like if you zoom out, like I don't have a sense of like where is 218?
This is almost at the corner of Forest and
Street, yeah.
Farm Road.
Okay.
I believe the house is set lower than the street. Am I correct, Dan?
The house is about level with the street, and then it
Level, okay.
rises up to where those sheds are and where the proposed well is,
Okay,
and then it drops back down toward the wetland.
okay. Might be a different house I was thinking of. There's a house that near that bend that sits a little bit lower, so this might be the other one that is near there. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have a motion to ratify the agent's prior approval of this well permit?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other comments? Okay,
Matt Beavers, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
and Daryl, aye. Hey, welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
I'm doing on the agenda. I believe, let's see. We really just have the variance hearing and then an appointment for 41 Forest Street left to do. So let me use up a part of the 2 minutes we have. So Ellen, have we received the green cards?
Yes, we have. It's all
Just speak
set.
really slowly.
Yeah. Okay, so we have that. All right, let me bring up the document. then. Right. We'll get ready. We'll get the locus for folks. Oops, come on. All right. Since it's all in prep, one more minute and we can start.
And Daryl, I don't know if there are any abutters, but this is close to Great Rock Road, just so you know, it kind of works its way to the back side of the other properties on Great Rock.
Yep, okay. So we are going to have, I guess I have to wait officially until it's 8. Do we have any abutters to this property at the moment? Okay, it's 7:30 and I'm going to open the hearing for a variance hearing regarding a septic replacement at 54 Farm Road. And the engineer is here and he can present the reasons for why the variances are being sought for this project.
All right, for the record, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowner, Susan Moore. She's in the process of selling her home and she did not pass the Title V inspection. To orient you, Farm Road is over to the left-hand side of the drawing. This is pretty much straight across from 55 Farm Road that's been the subject of the subdivision or whatever is happening over there, just to orientate you. The existing system is located in that sloped area of the front yard. There's a septic tank there. There's a D box, and then there's some sort of leaching field in that small lawn area. The existing well is located directly behind the house. It's approximately 60 to 65 feet from the existing septic system. Under a previous Title V, it passed inspection a number of years ago. The well was tested and proved to be low in nitrogen. When we got involved, we looked at the front yard and we just felt that it was just not going to be large enough to support a new septic system. And then we would also have the issue of being too close to the well. So we talked to the homeowner and we agreed that we should look at the rear of the yard for a septic system, so we can get a full-size septic system in and meet the well offset. So that's what we did. We went out to the back. It's the higher part of the yard, so it's the system will be above the well, upgrading of the well. But I think overall it's a better situation getting the 100-foot offset from the well. We got a full-size septic system. The soils are relatively good up there. We had good perk rates. The groundwater table wasn't too bad. So we put in a conventional stone and pipe system up in that area. And we've got a tank and pump chamber down by the house, and we're pumping up to the septic system. So the variances are just all local Sherborn variances. It does fully meet Title V. So we're looking at 3 variances, 2 related to groundwater and 1 related to the well offset.
Okay, and I see it's by the elevation, it's going to be, oopsie there, a pump system, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fighting gravity. It's like, so is it like a 14, 15 foot topographic change?
It's about a 15-foot pump up, yes.
Yeah. So we better hope that it doesn't fail. So I mean, are there contingencies or, sort of belt and suspenders that are put into it when, you're fighting gravity that way, to that extent?
Well, it's the same contingency we would put in any pump system, would have, the tank is sized, oversized for at least a 24-hour storage of the flow. We've got 2 pumps in there, so if one fails, we've got an extra pump. Those are the main contingencies that we're concerned about.
Right, and there's like the whole auto alarm if there's a pump failure, so, right.
Yes.
All right, well, that makes
Okay.
sense.
So again, it doesn't look like there were many other spots once you eliminate the front yard for space and proximity to well. Then you get far enough back, you have the arc here. And so you are really just left with this space.
Right, we located all the other butters wells. You can see their
Mhm.
arcs coming
Yeah.
in there. So it's really, it's a good spot, I thought, for the septic system.
Mhm. Did it require, I see proposed tree line. Does that mean that trees had to be removed in this
Yeah,
area
it
to
is.
accommodate it?
It is wooded up there, so that we
Mm.
do have to cut some trees to get this in.
Mhm. Okay, does anyone have any other questions on the board? And Mark, any particular comments about this?
No, I'm all set with it. It's a good design based on all the constraints at the property, so I'm all set with it as it relates to the design.
Mhm. And are there any people attending who have any questions? A butter or otherwise? Okay, if not, let me go to the requests for the variances and we'll proceed with that. If something comes to mind for anyone, we can discuss it as we go along. Okay, so do we have a motion to grant a variance to section 8.01 regarding groundwater offset?
So moved.
Seconded, although, can I just ask a quick question, Dan? Like, I'm surprised that considering how much they're going up in elevation, that the groundwater is still within 4 feet.
Well, it's an adjusted groundwater. In 2 of the holes, we couldn't really find groundwater.
Okay,
We found some indications of it at 60 inches in one of the holes.
mm-hmm,
And then we did the Frimpter adjustment, and it came out right around 5 feet. So we thought that we would ask for this waiver.
yeah, okay. And also, well, I mean, right now, everything is so, I don't know when you did the measurements, but it's,
We went there in June. and
yeah.
It was dry in June as well.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, so we were already in a drought at that point, so the water table is probably higher than was observed. Okay,
Okay, ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl, I. Do we have a motion to grant a variance 8.02? Similarly pertaining to the groundwater level.
So moved.
Second,
Any other comments? Okay,
Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
and Daryl, I. And do we have a motion to grant a variance to 10.1B?
So moved.
Seconded,
I'll just make the comment that this is a variance to the on-site well, which is always our preference if it has to be a trade-off between the on-site well or somebody and a butter's well. So
And it's an improvement, a significant improvement from the existing setback.
true, it's almost double
Yeah,
Um,
so,
what they
That's-
had before.
yeah.
Okay, if no other comments, you can vote.
Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
And Daryl, I. So close the hearing, and are the plans ready for approval, Mark?
Yes, they are conditional to a deed recording for the garbage grinder not being designed for.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the plans with that condition?
So moved.
Second,
Other comments? Okay,
Matt, aye.
Thank you very much.
sure. Do I have to vote now? Again?
yes,
Think so.
Oh, okay, sorry. So Matt voted. Lisa, I. Sorry.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
and Daryl, I. All right. Any
Now I
other
can thank
questions
you.
from you, Dan?
No, just
Okay,
a
now you
big
can say
thank you.
thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. All right, we have one more item, and so Ellen, do we need to wait until 7:50?
That's not a hearing, so it's.
Right, it's
the
just a
time
scheduled appointment.
With the applicant, and she's here, so.
All right, so, oops, hold on. Have to admit someone. Okay. All right. Mark, would you like to just briefly review where we are, and then I'll have comments and
Sure.
also involve the Kelly I see is here as
Yes,
well,
yeah.
so.
She's more than welcome to interject if I am incorrect in my review. The board met at our last meeting in July to review this building application. Building application came in for some renovations of the kitchen and a few other areas within the house. In reviewing the application, we were trying to determine if it was more than 50% of renovations to the existing house. And in doing so, we determined that the room count was exceeding the septic system design allowance of up to 9 rooms, 4 bedrooms. It actually had 12 rooms. The board reviewed that and was suggesting ideas. One was for the 2 basement rooms that are below grade, that they could be deed recorded. And then the other challenge, I would say it was a challenge, was determining how to reduce the first floor room count, which presently has 6 rooms. So Kelly has presented to the board information that they, in pictures with it, indicating they removed the heat boards from the sunroom, which was one of the rooms within the room count. And so tonight it's back for review to determine if that would be the solution to keep the heat removed, keep it as a 3-season, there it is, thank you, Daryl, 3-season porch. And it looks more like a room, but a 3-season room, I'll call it. And there was discovery too of the board reviewing this room back a few years back, I think the late 1990s or somewhere in that range. So that was reviewed as well. And at this time, Kelly's here to see, if this is a possibility.
Wait. But Mark, isn't this the one that had a deed recording in 2003 that
That's
said
correct.
you can't put heating in
Yep.
the sunroom and make it a finished room as per our regs? And then that wasn't carried forward in the deed transfer, I guess, to the subsequent owners,
That's
or
correct.
the current owner, or so. I mean, that's the impetus. So I mean, it's not like, is this going to satisfy the room count? This is bringing it into compliance with an existing deed recording. Right.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So I think is the question that now that they're in compliance, we can discuss this further with this deed recording, is the room count acceptable or not? Isn't that really the question?
Yes, I think that's the question, and Excuse me, I missed somebody. Hold on. All right. So this is, I believe that this meets the letter of what was included in the deed recording, is that it not have heat,
Correct.
that it doesn't really look like a sunroom as might have been originally anticipated, to me just speaks to the need for being precise in the future about how we word things. This looks like very much a regular finished room. And the way that it's connected to the rest of the house, there are not outside doors between the abutting room and this room. I would assume and this room is much smaller than the abutting room, that opening the doors could probably easily heat this room effectively.
Or plugging in a heater into that outlet right there.
Right. So, but that goes back to one thing that we face a lot, is when we're looking at things that are unusual circumstances and then how to define what we want the outcome to be. This just highlights how difficult that can be sometimes, or how that lack of precision could lead to something unintended. So again, not any fault of the current homeowner, because this condition appeared to have been there when they moved in. So we are trying to just fix something that was done incorrectly before.
I mean,
So
yeah,
I do, yeah.
yeah. For current, for prospective things, we'd say things like, you can't even have finished, wallboard. Like, it's not just no heat, it's additional things, and like, not having necessarily electrical outlets that would facilitate heating a space. It's supposed to be an unfinished space. So I agree with you, Daryl, but we can't retrospectively, require more, I guess, than
Right.
specifically in the deed. What we can require, though, is that the room count meets the septic, sort of parameters.
Right. And I was on the board when this was evaluated, and certainly the impression I recall having was that it would be a true sunroom that was just all windows around. So that was something that came up, and then for whatever reason did not get reflected in the language later on. What was I going to say about that? Oh, but it was also early on, I believe, in the board's use of deed recordings as a tool to deal with things like this, and basement rooms in particular is what had been envisioned. So since then, I believe we've only done basement rooms, and we've also regarded rooms such as this. I can think of at least one other in town where we did not consider it to be an unheated space, even though it would meet the criteria that's here. But again, the existence of what the requirements were then, and that the deed recording that was filed, or covenant or restriction, I forget what the exact term was for it, this particular one, met what we requested. So I think really as a board, we're honoring that, but it's, I see it as perhaps the exception that proves our rule, and the issue of trying to watch out for these kinds of things, although it's very difficult. So I guess there are a few things too I'd like to think about for moving ahead with this. And one would be, what is the status of the baseboard heating pipes that led to that? Like, are they thoroughly disconnected, removed, capped off, or might someone else in the future see that as easy to pop up back on the baseboard heating to it? I think we'd like to try and minimize that happening. I'm not sure how, when people are purchasing a house, how much these documents get researched and presented to potential buyers.
Well, I mean, that's what my suggestion's about, but
Okay.
I think let's focus though on the, for this particular house in this circumstance, like,
Yeah.
where we are. And like we said, we can't, you know, if this was permitted historically and becomes in compliance to the satisfaction of the, you know, building department and us, then, you know, that's one issue. But the other issue is just making sure that the current room count or the proposed room count is concordant with the septic capacity.
Well, part of my question about what are new homeowners aware of kind of goes to how much effort to deal with the remnants of the heating system that are there. Like if another person doesn't realize that there's this deed restriction and sees these pipes and they're like, wow, what a great idea.
Yeah,
to-"
but my suggestion would make it so that everyone would be aware prior to any future transaction. So
Oh,
that's what,
I'm talking about what requirements we might have now for this, that it be
right, okay, but you said
thoroughly
another person.
disabled as a heating system, not merely the removal, potentially, just for discussion, you know,
I think
how
that's what,
much
yeah, I mean, so
needs
it's
to
really-
happen.
That's, isn't that like a building department person saying what constitutes a system? So I would think that they would need to completely cut any, you know, piping conduits to that entire area and cap off anything that's, you know, proximate to it, adjacent to it, right?
Hmm.
So
Okay.
where we are today with the removal, we had foam insulation put underneath this room, just as good measure. When we came in, we had insulation that was falling. So we had foam insulation put in. At this point, what we did is we had them cut the plumber cut the copper pipes below ground without removing that foam insulation and capped them, which is the best we were able to do quickly, and within our budget.
Okay,
Is anyone from the building department, Chris, or anyone here, or Mark, is this something you're comfortable weighing in on?
I would say that the one concern is if the house ever sold, you don't want it being too convenient to just restore the heat. So.
Right, right. Let's table that for a minute though, because
Okay.
I think we will have a regulatory fix to ensure that something like this doesn't happen ever again.
Maybe, and what was the question, Lisa? Maybe.
So my question now is, do you feel comfortable with what Kelly just, you know, presented, that they went underneath, they cut the pipes, they capped, you know, the pipes for the adjacent space, so, and removed the piping from under the room, correct, Kelly?
We removed as much of it as we could without essentially pulling down all the foam insulation that was just recently foamed. So it's not accessible. It's not easily accessible from this room.
Okay, I think that helps me as well. I don't know, Lisa, if that helps you, but that was my concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree that sounds like that makes sense. I mean, you know, ultimately, I think it's a lot to ask to rip out closed cell foam to move it back, you know, 10 feet when like realistically putting
Right.
that 10 feet back in wouldn't be that much harder than it is now. I think as long as it's out of the room and the connection is not accessible, I think it's reasonable.
It is. And by the way, I'm on video and these photos can be reflected right behind me and I can move. So like, I just wanted everybody to see, like, we've tried to make the accommodations. I was unaware of this deed restriction during the last meeting. Otherwise, I certainly would have had this removed prior.
Kelly, if I could, Madam Chair, through you to Kelly. Kelly, the room that we're discussing, I have up the plan that your architect did, and you had an office off the living room. Is that the room we're talking about? The office that was labeled office?
Yes, that is the room. This is the room that I'm in right now. And it was the sunroom previously. I reviewed all of those minutes and I believe that, you know, there was a great debate between whether, because of the walls being finished, it was a sunroom or not. And the remedy was the heat. So, but this is the room that I'm in right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I was confused. I know it showed the library and then off the library and office to the left of the plan. So there we go. Thanks, Daryl. So I just want to make sure we're discussing the room that is labeled office.
It is, absolutely.
Thank you. And that will reduce the room count. So that's excellent. I didn't know if it was the one to the right labeled screen porch. I said, oh, that, I don't think that's the one we were counting, but that's good to know it was the room labeled office.
No.
Thank you.
I can assure you that there's zero heat in there and will never be heat in there or in here moving forward.
And I had one other question. Are there any rooms above the garage?
There are not.
Okay.
There's a storage area above the garage, but nothing that's finished.
So is a room count for the first floor now 5? What?
That's correct. It goes from 6 to 5.
Okay, and then what's on the
That's it.
second? Can you just go up?
4 bedrooms. It's right down there.
So it's
Okay.
So it's
9.
9.
So it's 9, and then, so now
Oh,
we
yeah.
still have the
Mm,
2 rooms in the basement
mhm.
that we talked about as being candidates for deed recordings because they're in the basement. They don't have access to the outside, and they don't have, well, there does appear to be one window, but is this a window well kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a small little window.
Okay. And so is the board
As I
still,
recall, last time we sort of came to like, we could definitely deed record these 2, and the debate was the debate was the sunroom office.
Yeah. And there's no bathroom or anything down there, right?
No.
So I think sort of just to put out where I stand on all this, I think if I were to go back in time and do it before, I might have worded that deed recording a little differently. But since I wasn't there and it is the way it is, I think that we're in compliance with that now, and I'd have a hard time sort of going back and re-adjudicating that. I think it's a lesson learned for the future in how we manage this, but I don't feel comfortable sort of holding things up for the current homeowner when they're really doing their best to comply with what we asked them to do, what we asked any future owner of the house to do last time.
Yeah. Can we just pull up the wording again of the deed recording, Daryl? Is that something you
Yes.
can do? Okay.
is that big enough to read?
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, so I think it's compliant. But so the modification that we'll discuss in greater detail to the regulation will be that within 30 days of any transaction, we will require proof of this restrictive covenant, which will be expanded to also deed record that the basement rooms cannot be used as bedrooms. And that no, bathrooms can be installed down there. So it's going to have 3 components, those 2 rooms and then this restriction. And that so you guys as current owners will need to sign the proposed deed recording, and then as well as this. So like, I think we should just combine them. I guess we could leave that to lawyers or something, but what I'm contemplating that we add to the regulations is that within 30 days of any transaction, that the Board of Health be provided a copy of the deed, that that it's basically running with the deed. And that the new owners, when the deed is conveyed, that they are signing the restrictive covenant and are responsible for compliance with it. So that's what we do for our activity and use limitations right now, that we put on properties, like when you only clean up a hazardous waste site to levels sufficient for industrial or commercial use, not residential. We record something really similar called an activity and use limitation that says, here's what's allowed on the property, here's what's not allowed, and you can't do single family residential, you can't do, a daycare, blah, blah, blah. So that runs with the deed. And that's what this was supposed to do.
Okay.
And so basically, you know, anytime a property that has an activity and use limitation, which is just a different kind of deed recording under the regulations in Massachusetts for, you know, the mass contingency plan, within 30 days of that transaction, DEP has to receive documentation that the new owners, you know, that it's running with the deed. And so when the deed is transferred, now the new owners have to be, you know, sign the restrictive covenant, and then that documentation has to be provided to DEP. So I'm just saying, like, it's like a parallel thing, because that way, you know, there's some legal teeth and, you know, to it. And we can have the confidence that any new owner understands what the restrictions are, because they have to sign it. And so they become legally liable to ensure that they're complied with.
Now, is that sort of thing any more discoverable than this restrictive covenant?
No, they're all,
Should have been.
this also is just citing the deed that's recorded in the registration book, you know, which is the property that's being transacted. So no, it's a completely analogous situation. A restrictive covenant is just a deed restriction, and that's all an AUL is, except the AUL is a specific terminology we use under the mass contingency plan. It's a terminology thing, but the intent is exactly the same. So you're saying you're referencing in the registry of deeds what page number and book the property is depicted on, the meets and bounds that comport to the deed. And when a property is sold, the deed is transferred. That's how Kelly, you know, now owns his property. The deed is now in her or her husband or whoever's name. So this is our insurance that every time someone is selling a property, so this would require us to also keep a very up-to-date inventory of all the properties that have these kind of deed recordings on them. We would need to know about it, and we would need to obviously.
Right, that was pretty much my question about if this wasn't made clear at the time of transfer in the past, then it falls on us to try to keep track of that.
Right.
Which is going to be tough because we don't always know when properties
Well, we can
changing
I
hands.
mean,
so
the town knows. The town keeps track of every transaction. So we would just have to like set up clear lines of communication. I mean, it's the same with our requirement that any house with a cesspool, you know, they have 1 year, you know, within a 1 year period post transaction, there has to be, you know, an updated. So it's the same issue for that. You know, we just have to have clear communication with the town. The tax and assessor's office, I'm sure, has very good records about who's responsible for paying the real estate taxes upon transfer of a property. So I don't think it's hard. It's just an additional step that we need.
But for now, since we don't have that set up, we'll really just be looking at a deed recording for the 2 basement rooms.
Well,
is that how you see it, or you think
I would just put it all together at the like, we wouldn't change the language. It would be exactly the language that we're looking at here. But this doesn't satisfy it because it doesn't have their name on it. Like, it clearly didn't run with the deed. So the owner in between, I guess, the Silbersteins and Kelly did not. It obviously wasn't transferred with it, and so some attorney somewhere screwed up. It's supposed to. That's what a deed recording is supposed to do. It is supposed to run with the land. That's the way it works. So they screwed up, and it was never the intent that it wouldn't run with the land. That's the whole point of a restrictive covenant. So
to fix it, we're basically asking for a fresh deed recording
with all
signed by the current owners that includes this language as well as language restricting the basement rooms.
Correct. And someone should make sure, probably your attorney, Kelly, just make sure that you know, that the reference here is actually correct. Like, just make sure like the book and page number that's being referenced in this first paragraph,
Mhm.
you know, is correct, because your new deed recording will have to have that as well, you know, like reference the deed and, you know, all that.
Okay.
There was also, and it's not our area, so you'll need to check with whatever counsel you have, is the issue was raised that it's not a deed recording because this is registered land. And I don't know what those distinctions mean in
No,
terms of
no.
what documents apply.
Right. Well, so there's recorded land and there's registered land. And so the citations, just, that's why I'm saying it needs to be, make sure that it's correct. So
Mhm.
AULs apply to both recorded and registered land. You just need to make sure that the citation is appropriate. It's still a deed that's running with the land. A deed, you know, restriction that should be running with the land. So, but that is an attorney, you know, just double check with your attorney, I would say.
Okay, so Ellen, you would be able to provide the standard language for a deed recording for the basement rooms. And then they
Yeah.
already have this language. So that could be merged and then brought back to the board for review.
Prior to that, it being brought to the registry, right?
Yes.
And I have a quick question. Is it
Yeah.
possible for this process and the process to review the remainder of the permit go in parallel? We are at risk of losing our contractor and our construction loan. If this doesn't get wrapped up soon, I certainly want to do the right legal thing and be in compliance. I just don't want to lose a substantial amount of capital that we've already put up here. So wanted to understand process a bit more.
Okay, so there are a few things. We've had other issues in the past when people are dealing with bank financing or other circumstances where we have communicated with those folks to explain what the process is. You know, why is it taking longer than usual? It's not because there's something horribly wrong with the property, if that's what a financing agency is concerned about. So we're happy to try to fill in on that. Now, the next meeting is the 7th, is it, of September? Ellen?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
September 7th. So if you would be able to get the language together before then, I'm sure Ellen could review it and do a check, and then the board can take a look at it then and be able to vote. Would that work? And is there anything else we can do in between now and then to help with your timing?
I
I
guess
had-
I have a question as to whether we need to review it as a board or whether we can authorize approval. Because we've traditionally done deed recordings, we've sort of said what it is, and then we sort of
Yeah,
just make that a condition. I don't know if we absolutely need to read all of this together, or if we could just provide language and authorize. If it's the standard language on the bedroom in this language, like maybe we can authorize approval of that without having to meet as a
Yeah,
board.
it's not very
Hmm.
complicated. I don't think. We just need to make sure it gets done and that the format's correct.
yeah. So Ellen, does that sound okay to you?
Yeah,
If
I'm just confused by what Lisa is requesting. I mean, I don't understand what I would be doing differently.
You're not doing anything differently for this one.
Okay,
So
okay.
all we're saying is, because there's this existing restrictive covenant that was supposed to run with the deed and now have the current owner's names on it, all we're saying is that just the normal deed recording for the restrictions on the basement 2 rooms that you normally
Yeah.
do, and
Yeah.
then just adding this paragraph too.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I'm saying.
So
I'm
that
saying,
will
let's
all
put it
go-
all together, you know?
That's so it'll all just go on one deed recording.
Exactly, exactly.
okay.
That would, I think that's
fine.
better for everybody, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
So
and that helps.
I can provide that to Kelly tomorrow.
Yeah, and that helps clarify it for me too. I wasn't for sure how what the format would be. So then once it's best thing is to submit the information. Well, Ellen, are you going to be adding this language to the other deed recording that we
Yes,
offer?
what they-
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's
fine.
what they just said.
That's fine. Then once it's recorded, we'll get the book and page on the side of it, as you can see on this
Right.
one. That's when I'll know it's okay to review the building permit and grant approval for the previous request that you made for the renovations.
So I think the bottom line here is you don't have to wait for us to meet again. We'll get language to you tomorrow, but then it needs to be recorded before we can approve the permit. Does that make sense?
Yes, how long does the recording generally take?
Not long at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
some lawyers can do it the same day. They have
Yeah.
electronic processing that they can utilize.
Yeah.
You just need to have that attorney forward back to us, the actual recording.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate it. It has it's the same bank that is currently with us right now. They have no problem with the property, but we will be bumped out of interest rate qualification any moment now. So it's just a unpredictable time economically. So thank you. I appreciate the flexibility here.
Okay. All right. So I think we do need to vote on this, though. We need to vote on approval of deed recording the basement rooms and maybe just, Mark, are you planning to go visit, inspect? Are the photographs sufficient?
That's up to the board. I usually don't. If you would like me to, because this is a unique circumstance, I'd be glad to, but I'll leave that up to the board.
What
I
do
think it's
people think?
fine.
She's described what process was undertaken to disconnect the heating.
Our contractor is
Definitely
also
more.
here if there are any additional questions.
Okay, all right. So I'll ask then one other question for the contractor. Are there little nubs of pipes sticking up into the room that are calling out for a baseboard heater to be attached to them?
Hi, I'm Jim Mello from Mitchell Construction. No, everything was capped below the floor surface, like Kelly.
Okay,
So there's nothing up inside the room.
So, and if I may to Jim, did you seal the floor so the hole is gone from where the pipe was coming up?
We have not yet. It's going to
Yeah.
be a part of our scope, but without the financing, I'm not going to start editing any of the walls or the flooring in this room.
That's fine. You can add that to the building application description that you're going to seal the floors where the heat was taken out.
Great.
Okay.
okay. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep, and then we would approve this conditional to Ellen reviewing the, finished product of the, prior to its recording, right? Is that? Right?
Well,
Yeah, we're basically
Yeah.
authorizing Ellen to approve the.
Yeah,
to-
okay.
yeah, I usually provide the language, give it to her. She'll have it, sign it, have it notarized. Either bring it or have her attorney send it to the Registry of Deeds, and then they provide a copy of the actual recorded
Yeah.
document back
Right.
to me.
Exactly. Yep.
And then you can compare that to the language that we expected, and as long as it matches, then we're
Yeah,
all set.
well, typically they should use the document I provide, so.
Yeah. Right, I could imagine that whatever is at the top here is going to be what's changing, and so,
Well, certainly the names, but it
Yeah.
would be great though for someone to just double check that it's completely correct.
mhm.
And current with what your deed actually says. I mean, your lawyer can do that in probably 2 seconds.
Yeah, he'll review anything that I ask him to. It's ASAP, so.
This is really, it's not complicated. Anyone
Yeah.
should be able to do this really easily.
Okay. All right. So, do we need to vote on our acceptance of bringing that room into compliance? Do we need some sort of formal acknowledgement, Ellen, that says, in recognition of removal of the heat from the sunroom in accordance with the prior declaration of restrictive covenant. You know, the home is back into compliance with the exception of the basement rooms, and then we move on to a vote for the basement room deed recording.
Yeah, you can, I guess, if you want to vote it.
Maybe the way to do it is that we vote to authorize approval of the permit.
Yeah,
Subject to
conditional on
receipt
receiving
of-
deed restrictions for the existing heat being out of the existing sunroom and deed restrictions for the 2 basement rooms.
Yeah, I think that's right, Matt. That sounds good to me. So
Right.
moved. Did you get that, Ellen?
I'll
read
second
it on
Again,
the
if you
tape.
want.
Do you need him to repeat it, Ellen?
If you want to, Matt, otherwise I can I'll watch it on the tape and
Okay,
get it.
that's fine.
Yeah,
I would suggest you add that you give me the authorization because I approve the
Yeah.
building permits. Just add that part to it.
Okay,
Yep.
so I would say I would move that we authorize Mark to approve the building permit conditional to deed recordings that the sunroom / office not ever be heated, and that the 2 existing basement rooms not be used as bedrooms per our standard language.
Unless and until the septic
Right, is
has
upgraded.
been upgraded.
And if I can just add, that language for the basement rooms not to be used as bedrooms is part of it. They're not to be used in the room count for the bedroom count as
Right.
well, because there's a state definition on room
Yeah.
count. It's all
And-
worded properly in the
yeah.
example that Ellen's talking about, so it should be
Yeah.
okay using that.
And
deed.
then there's a sentence saying that the house cannot be further expanded.
Yeah.
Unless and until the septic is
Excellent.
upgraded
good.
to support it.
All right, so do we have a motion for this revised? Or motion for
Someone
the motion?
want to move what I just said?
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I thought we were doing. So
Okay.
moved.
yes,
So moved.
and second. Any other discussion? Okay, Matt.
I just
Oh.
want to say that I still feel that this is uncomfortable with this. I think we're in a major drought as a Board of Health with limited resources. It really sucks that they bought the property and they were unaware of this, but I also think that at some point we need to be conscious of, the whole reason that the regulations are in place. So that's for the record. So I don't agree with this.
I mean, you referenced drought though, but just to be clear, we're talking about the septic.
I understand. But the septic is going to affect the drinking water, everybody's drinking water. The natural resources are depleted. And so all these things end up interrelated. We know that because
Right,
there
but
has to be-
that's why we're
That's
not
fine.
allowing them to have more bedrooms added.
I
So-
understand. I'm
I
just
think
saying
we're
that I'm just telling you that I don't agree. That we have regulations for a reason. I understand that it sucks that they bought the property and that this is the situation. But I also think that at some point, it ends up being, at some point, there's a situation where an upgrade of a septic is beneficial. That's my opinion. You're totally entitled to your opinions. This is my opinion.
totally agree. All right,
All right, and we are following established procedures. So again, if you would like to try to formulate what you see as a change to our existing procedures and propose that, that would be great. All right, so are we ready to vote? I'll take that as a yes. Go ahead, Matt.
Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, nay.
And Daryl, aye. All right. So good luck, Kelly.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to everybody in this Zoom. I really appreciate it. It has been a journey. This house is a whole thing. I've learned a lot about it, but I appreciate everybody's flexibility and understanding. And thank you. Thank you for all that you all do.
No, but
And
thank you
Kelly-
for working on it on your side too, to help us out.
Yeah.
through this.
And Kelly, I should be able to get the document to you probably by early afternoon tomorrow.
Okay, I'll have it turned around super quick. I'll let my attorney know to be on the
Yeah,
lookout.
and as soon as I have it ready, I'll email it to you.
Yeah, email it to me. I'm going to use my real estate attorney and not the contact that
Yeah.
that had
Yeah,
reached out.
I'll email it to you. Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
okay.
All right. So I believe we have reached the end of our agenda. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Matt, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca, do you want to
Rebecca?
adjourn?
Honeywell, aye. Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Okay, and Daryl, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.